Gentlemen, today we are going to be going through a C7 Corvette buyer guide that I have prepared just for you. I know I'm a little late to the game, right? There's C8s have been out for a while, but thing is, I think there's still going to be a lot of people who are maybe looking to get into a C7 for their first car or for their first Corvette, and people are still interested in the C7s because they're still outstanding vehicles. And it's, as far as we know, it's going to be the last front engine Corvette that will exist. And they're not making any more of them. So they're going to be a history piece. So if you're thinking about getting one, a C7 Corvette, you're in the right place. Now, I would just want to preface this video real quick and say, if you're thinking about spending like $200,000 on a ZR1, this probably isn't the right video for you. This is for somebody who's looking to spend anywhere in the ballpark of like $30,000 to like $80,000 on the high end for a C7. So if you're looking at anywhere in that range, basically from base model to Z06, then that's what we're going to be talking about today. So just to jump right into it, to show you what we're going to cover today, we're going to be talking about the Stingray, the Grand Sport, and the Z06, and the ZR1, just like very, very briefly. And just to kind of back up, these three cars right here, these are all Corvettes that I've owned. So the orange one and the red one are both Stingrays, and the middle one is a Z06. So I've had three different C7s over the years, loved all of them. And so I've had a pretty good range of experiences. So as we kind of cover these topics, I'm going to be sprinkling in my personal opinion and experiences I've had with my C7s. So we're also going to be covering the 1LT, 2LT, and 3LT trim levels, which they kind of have the equivalents to the LZ, the 1, 2, and 3 LZ. And I have a chart at the end that's going to go through all the different trim levels and everything because it can get kind of confusing. And then at the very end, I'm going to be covering what I think is the necessary trim levels and just a couple very small things to buy to make sure that you have the best experience possible in a C7. Okay, so let's just jump right into the first one here. So we're going to make me a little smaller so you can see. We're going to be talking about the base model Stingray first. So that one has the LT1, which makes 460 American horsepower. It has the 4-piston front and rear Brembo brakes, leather seats, dual zone climate, removable roof. And you might be thinking, it's kind of weird mentioning some of the basic stuff, but the thing is, at least for me, like I wanted to not only enjoy like the performance of a Corvette, but I like Corvettes because they're also really comfortable inside. So I like that the climate controls work pretty well, and I like that it's a comfortable, it's a nice car to drive. It's comfortable and it's fun. So this is me kind of cruising a little bit. Actually, we're going to jump back up to this slide. I have this clip right here. This is when we were driving. I was passing my truck. Ooh, that sound. That's why we like driving Corvettes. It's a great car. Okay, so that's the Stingray in a nutshell. It's just your base level, everything. On top of the Stingray, there is the Z51 package that is going to slightly upgrade the front brakes. It's going to give you a little bit better oiling. It's going to give you a better transmission cooler, upgraded differential, and some very small aero, like out back. You'll see this little wing on the back bumper. That's the Z51 rear bumper, rear spoiler. So this car, this orange one, is my third Corvette that I had. It was another Stingray. And this is actually one that I was renting out for a little bit. So my overall general thoughts on the Stingray: awesome car. Absolutely loved it. It's super fun. It was quick. I mean, it has 460 horsepower, and it's right there on the throttle. And one thing I will say, I'm not a huge fan. I'm a little bit more old school, I think you could say. So I don't really like electronic throttles. I grew up as a car guy I like a nice cable throttle, right? But we're out of that generation. It is what it is. But I found, in my opinion, it's very, very responsive, even out of the box. I know a lot of cars I hate when you just press the throttle and like nothing happens for that split second. It genuinely feels really, really good. I think GM did an awesome job tuning the throttle response. The other thing is that it's a head turner. C7s are head turners wherever you go, even the Stingrays. They're just awesome, awesome cars, and they look great. They got pretty decent fuel mileage, all of them, at least 20 miles to the gallon. Now, I kind of drive like a granny a lot of times, admittedly. I get on it every so often, but for the most part, I just cruise around. I just like the feeling of getting in and out of a Corvette. I like that it has good mileage. The other cool thing is that C7s can be a daily or a garage queen. If you take care of it, if you want to throw it in a garage, it'll look great as a garage ornament. Take it out every week or so, clean it up. My Z06 was like that for a while. I really didn't even drive it a whole lot. And every time I did take it out, just top to bottom clean after everything. But for me, that was like most of the fun was actually cleaning it. Blind spots, you would think that being in the cabin, that the visibility is not the greatest. And I would say, yeah, the visibility is not the greatest, but it's actually okay. I thought it wasn't bad. There was never a point in time where I looked back and I thought, wow, I really can't see anything. I actually think the visibility is better in the Corvettes than it is in the Camaros. Like the 5th and 6th gen Camaros, you get in those and try to look behind you, I feel like I could not see a thing. But I like the visibility a lot better in the Corvettes. I think it was fine. Inclement weather, there were different times where I drove, I was daily driving the Corvettes, and plenty of times in the rain. And maybe this is because I was a little bit more careful, but I never had any issues with driving the car in heavy rain. I also made sure I was extra careful when I was driving around in the rain. And the Z06 had a bad weather option, and I used to turn that on. There's a dial that lets you set the different driving modes. So on the Z06, every time it would rain, I would just put it in the bad weather mode just to be safe because I didn't want to crash. And so I didn't. The auto versus manual thing. Now, I will say this is just going to totally come down to personal opinion. Manual transmission, for me, there's nothing quite like, manually shifting a gearbox. It is a great time. If that's not something that you really, really want, automatic is still okay. The only thing that really bothered me about the automatic was the active fuel management that they have. So in the automatics, it'll have, every so often it'll automatically shut down 4 cylinders while you're cruising to increase gas mileage. And the gas mileage increase was, pretty noticeable. But I don't want to be at 4 cylinders at any point in time, because then when you go to hit the gas, it's going to take a split second to kick the other 4 back on and get up to full power. The one workaround for having it in the active fuel management for the automatics is if you're driving in automatic, you can kind of switch it over to the manual gearbox mode, where you can tip the shifter up and down to manually shift through the gears on the automatic. If you do that, it will keep active fuel management off, and you'll always be in V8 mode. So it's kind of like the one workaround. But the only other thing is, you just got to remember, to keep shifting it with the stick. But if so it just kind of depends on your situation. So you do have a good bit of flexibility. The other good thing about the automatic is, from a dig, from a line, it's an automatic, right? So it's going to shift a lot faster than probably a person can. The shifting felt really good. I would say really good launch. It's kind of hard to shift the manual one and launch really hard, right? But it was still, both of them I found to be very, very enjoyable experiences. All right, things I didn't like. Okay, so the main thing I did not like is here, let me put me right here. The clear top. So the clear top on the C7s. Now let me just back up. You can have the painted top or the clear top, which is like a plexiglass or some kind of resin. That is my favorite top, but with a suction cup visor, that like an aftermarket piece. It's basically a sunshade that sticks up on top of the inside. And the thing that I've talked to my tint guy before, and he was saying because of the material, it's probably not, it probably wouldn't be good to apply the tint directly onto the thing. You probably could tint that sunshade or tint that clear roof, but I bought the actual sunshade and it was much better. Thing is, in the Florida heat, which is where I had these cars, the AC in the car could not keep up with the clear roof. So if the sun was beating down on the roof, it was going to get hot in that car, guaranteed. Like there's just, especially in the summer, there's no way the AC is going to be able to keep up with that, which kind of was a little frustrating. So that was like the only thing that I didn't like, because again, I'm driving around to be comfortable and have fun. I don't want to be in a hot car and like be sweaty and stuff. But I still liked having the clear top, because at night you can pop the sunshade off, throw it in the back, and then you can see the stars and whatever, see the moon. It's still a great time. The other thing I do not like is on Stingrays, they have this chrome grille. And something about this chrome, to me, it just kind of pops out and just like does not look good. So in my opinion, I really don't like the look of it. There's a lot of kits you can buy. I'm going to throw a link to one in the description of this video, along with a sunshade. They have like decal kits that are specifically made to cover up that chrome, and it just looks a lot better, especially from the front. When it has that chrome strip on, it's too much contrast. It just kind of throws the look off for me. And then the other thing I didn't like is the active fuel management. I wish it could be turned off completely, but it is what it is. And again, this is another clip of me driving the automatic down in Florida. Great car. All right, next slide. All right, we're going to briefly touch on the Grand Sport. Now, I have not owned a Grand Sport, but this is kind of generally the differences that we're looking at when you go to a Grand Sport. You're going to have, it's essentially the Z51 upgrades that came with the Stingray put onto a Z06 chassis. Now, that's not exact, but just that's like ballpark, that's like 90% of it. So this one, the Grand Sport is wide-bodied just like the Z06 is. So it's wider than the Stingray is. Has a magnetic ride. Again, the upgraded brakes. And that's essentially it. Still has the LT1 that makes 460 horsepower. The interior trim packages are going to convert the same as the Stingray. But we'll get into all that in a little bit. So essentially, that's all the Grand Sport is. Stingray engine, Z06 chassis, give or take. And then there is the Z06. Oh my goodness. Okay, there is. I'm going to put me up in the corner here. The Z06, and this is my car. Man, that car, outstanding. So has the LT4, 650 horsepower, supercharged engine, just craziness, absurdity. And I grew up with like 240SXs and Honda Accords and stuff like that. So when I finally got a Z06, this was like mind-blowing to me, right? I'm not one of these guys who with like 1,000 horsepower twin turbo Lamborghinis and stuff. So this car, it was fast to me, and I would love to have one again. So it has a wide body Z06. So it's essentially, think Grand Sport but supercharged, basically. I think the suspension and the brakes are going to be upgraded a little bit, But again, this is just like a general guide to kind of give you all the differences. My thoughts on the Z06 were, wow, just the best car I've ever driven. It was just so much fun. And the sound here, I got this clip right here. This car turned so many heads everywhere I went. This car got so many comments. Everybody just like, wow, dude, that thing is amazing. I would park somewhere, and get out of it and just like stop and turn around and just stare at it, sitting under street light. And there would be people yelling from across the parking lot like, yo, nice car. This car was absolute. For me, this was the first car that I ever drove that kind of, I would say, borderline scared me. There was one off-ramp that I took in this car, and I've never got the car to its limit, right, because I haven't crashed it or anything, but I took this corner so hard in this car, I felt like my guts inside my body were like going to come out the side of me. It was just, there was so much, it was the most G-forces I had ever felt in a car. It was incredible experience. And this car actually even saved my life. Like, no joke. This car saved my life once. I was driving down the highway. It was weekend, Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and I was in the left lane on the highway, and there was these those little turnaround things on the highway where other cars can kind of zip around and do a U-turn and get in. This car was not. The car was coming the other way, and they did not look, whatever. They didn't see me, so they immediately whipped around a U-turn and came right into my lane. And luckily I was paying attention. But I'm talking at 75 miles an hour, but boom, boom, like super fast, jerked it to the right and the left in the car, and the car was just like, whoop, whoop, nothing. Didn't even stutter, anything. We juked them like it was nothing. It was just incredible. So none of the cars I've ever owned would have been able to handle that turn that did. It was crazy. Okay, so then there's a ZR1, right? And what can you say about the ZR1 except, wow, this would actually be just a dream car one day. It just looks so good to me. So the ZR1 has the LT5, 744 horsepower. And just real quick, the LT4, the engine codes, the LT1, LT4, LT5, not to be confused with 1LT, which is the trim package for the vehicle. So, don't get not to get those confused. So the LT5, 744 horsepower, I believe has a different transmission as well. Massive aero, massive cooling, ceramic brakes, and just big upgrades. So now we're going to get into the trim levels. And I made this chart so that you guys can reference it, and I'm going to talk over what's going on here. So we have the trim levels, which are 1, 2, and 3 LT. Now these trim levels apply only to the Stingray and the GS. Over on the Z06 and the ZR1 side, you have 1, 2, and 3 LZ, and again, those apply to the Z06 and the ZR1. The same features that are in the 1, 2, and 3 LT are going to be essentially the same exact features in the 1, 2, and 3 LT. Okay, so the LT and LZ is kind of the same thing. It's just a matter of which version of the car they're applying to. So I didn't put all the features on. What I did is I just put like the major things that we want to look for. So basic stuff with 1LT. You get leather, basic tech inside, backup cameras. For me, backup camera is really important. So just want to make sure you know that it has that. It has all the standard features. 2LT. This is, in my opinion, this is my favorite trim right here. Well, this is not my favorite trim, but this is, I think, the real minimum trim. So the 2LT adds the Bose premium sound. Okay, and so I know I like to consider myself somebody who's like passionate about car audio. I know a lot of people hate on Bose, right? They think Bose is junk, whatever. I don't think Bose is junk. I think it sounds great. I think the sound system in this car is incredible. Now, that being said, when you add the premium sound for the 2LT, it includes, I think it goes from a 7 speaker to a 10 speaker, but it also includes a subwoofer. So this subwoofer makes all the difference. It just drastically increases the quality of the sound inside the car. Get that subwoofer in there and just the sound just fills the entire vehicle. Nice, clean, bassy. It's really, really nice. In my opinion, again, I have, I got Corvette taste, right? So that's what's important to me. The 2LT also super important. This is like a necessary thing. Heated and ventilated seats, especially in Florida. The ventilated seats, you need those. You have to have them. In northern states, heated seats are great as well, but the heated and ventilated seats, awesome. The other thing that the 2LT, or I can't remember if it's the 2LT or the 3LT, but one of them adds the automatic trunk closer. So like when you set the trunk down, it just kind of finishes closing automatically, which is nice. It's not a major thing, but it's kind of a pain in the butt when you try to slam the trunk down and it doesn't close. But the heated and ventilated seats, absolute necessity. The other big thing right here, front camera. At first I thought the front camera sounded like kind of a pointless thing, but when you're pulling up to like a curb in the Z06, and like mine had that nice carbon front splitter on it, I definitely didn't want to crack that front splitter on a curb, right? So the front camera is actually really helpful. You can go in there, you're pulling up to park, put the front camera on, make sure you don't get too close to a curb. Sound basic, but super, super helpful. And the HUD. And I didn't think that, which is the heads-up display. I did not think I really cared about the heads-up display because I had one in my Stingray, and then my Z06 had heads-up display. I didn't think I really cared about it that much until I got in my orange Corvette, which was only a 1LT. So no heated seats, no premium sound, no front camera, and also no heads-up display. And it was at that moment that I realized, I would never buy another 1LT again. Heated seats, you got to have the heads-up display. It's just like one of those really small things that obviously it doesn't add any extra performance to the vehicle at all, but when you're driving at night and you got that thing on the windshield, with the tachometer on the windshield, and you like put it in sport mode and everything, dude, it's so fun. It's so cool. It's so cool. And then when you get up to the 3LT, that's when you get into the extra side skirts, added luxury bits, the carbon fiber and trims on everything. And yeah, it's mostly visual stuff. You get the data recorder as well, which I had the data recorder on the Z06 because the Z06 was a 3LT, but I never used it. It wasn't necessary. The side skirts and everything are incredible. I think it really, really adds to the look. Let me jump over to that other slide really fast. You can see the side skirts right here. Let me make me small. You can see the side skirts right here. It really, really enhanced the overall look of the car. Worst case scenario, if you cannot find a 3LT and all you can find is a 2LT or 2LZ in this case, the total, like all the aero add-ons, you can buy third party from other companies for like $5,000-ish. So it's not the end of the world if you can't get it, in my opinion, if you can't get it in the 3 trim. The 2 will be just fine, and then just get the extra aero add-ons. So, and then we kind of touched on the Z51 earlier. The Z51 is an upgrade for the Stingray, and the Z51 items are standard on the GS because it's like Stingray Z51 on a Z06 chassis with non-supercharged LT1 engine. So then you jump over to the Z06/ZR1, and again, you have the same 1, 2, 3 LZ. All those features are going to apply just the same down the board. It's the same thing until you get down to the Z07 and the ZTK. And the Z07 is a package for the Z06. It's going to have a ton of aero upgrades, with all the little tiny canards and the vertical stabilizers, carbon ceramic brakes. One really easy way to tell, a lot of people think they have a Z07 package on their car, and you can go and check the VIN code in the trunk to see if it does. But the main thing is, if you look on the car and it does not have carbon ceramic brakes, it's not a Z07. It can have all the same aero as a Z07, but it's got to have the carbon ceramic brakes, or it doesn't have the full Z07 package. And Z07 package, in my opinion, it was not necessary. The Z06 handled incredibly, braked incredibly, did everything incredible. I suppose carbon ceramic brakes would be great if you're going to a track, you get the more upgrade, but yeah, I could only imagine it would be so expensive. And then the ZTK package is a package for the ZR1, additional suspension tuning, more aero, brakes. You get it. So, my C7 Corvette essentials. Here, I'm going to make me smaller again. Pop down here. Okay. So, my C7 essential kit right here. To me, the transmission choice is going to be a preference. I would say that if you really want to drive a gearbox, go for manual. But if you need to drive an automatic, it's still going to be fun. It's still going to be a really, really fun car. Even in automatic, you're going to enjoy it. So like if you're somewhere where there's like crazy amounts of traffic and you just don't want to deal with constant clutching and everything, you can still have a great time. The first C7 I ever drove was an automatic Z06, blazing fast, right? Because you don't have to shift. It was crazy. It was like a rocket. I put the throttle down and it just like instantly shifts. Boom. It's just gone. So very fast. I would say the 2LT trim level or 2LZ, if you're going Z06, mandatory. Absolutely mandatory, and that's going to be because of the heated and ventilated seats and the Bose sound, and the heads-up display. Like those things are going to enhance the experience so much more than anything else. Other than a supercharger, other than jumping up to a Z06. And like the Stingray is still fun. The Stingray is still 460 horsepower. It's still a really good time. But the Z06 is just, wow. Yeah, it's really fast. If you get a car with a clear top, you need to get a suction cup roof shade. I'll put a link to one down in the description, like my Amazon associate link or whatever. I'll get like a 5-cent commission if you want to get one. You don't have to. You don't have to use my link. But if you're going to get one with a clear roof, you need a sunshade. Otherwise, your AC will not keep up. Overall, Z06 is incredible, but it's not necessary to have fun. I think if you get a Stingray, you probably should get a Z51 I think it's going to keep the value of the car up by having it be a little bit more desirable as a Z51 car. And, you're just going to get better brakes and everything. So, and like the price jump up to a Z51 is like negligible. If looking at used prices, it's like basically nothing. Okay, that's it. That's all I have in the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please put it down in the description or put it down in the comments. And if you want me to make a video about something else, happy to take suggestions. All right, you guys have a great day.